believe I was in high school. I was walking home from football practice after school with a couple of my friends. All of a sudden, a police officer pulled over, hopped out of his car and told us not to move.
And I guess I was walking too fast for the police officers, and they tried to look in my bags. At first, I kind of denied them because I know my rights. Eventually, I just gave in, and I let them look in my bags, and they realized it was just clothes.
And the man was following me around the store like I was gonna steal something, even though I had the money on me.
And he said the thing that they always say, that something happened a couple of blocks ago and you fit the description of the person that was seen fleeing the scene of the crime.
So I guess when the call came in, my dad had fit the description, but he was not the person who did it, so they actually beat him real bad, real bad. He had to get stitches in his head.
I was 13 years old at the time, so I was really young, and I was coming back from my grandmother's house, and she gave me $20, so I put the $20 in my socks, right? Where I live at is the South Bronx, Patterson Projects, so there's always cops around here. Anyway, the cops stopped me, right? So I was nervous, I was shaking a little bit, because most of the time the cops interact with somebody I know, a friend of mine, or my brother, or an older head around the block, and it comes to interrogation. And it was why do you have a hoodie on? I'm it's cold outside, I have a hoodie on. They was yeah, I see you walking around the block, what are you doing? You have a hoodie on, looking back at me. And the reason I was looking back is because y'all following me. They was patting me down. They checked my socks, and they found $20. And it was what is this? The only thing that was on my mind, it was I hope I don't get shot, or I hope I don't get the $20 taken away from me because I'm hungry. Yeah, I felt kind of tough that day, because I got stopped by the cops like everybody else.
My brother and I, we were arrested, and the police beat us pretty badly when we were children. I was 15 at the time. The police officers, while they were filling out their forms, for no reason at all, they just stopped and said, "Do you feel like a beatdown?" And the two officers that were involved, they took us downstairs in the 103rd precinct, the same precinct that Sean Bell was killed in. And they just kicked us in our groin repeatedly. And a black officer came in the room and told them that's enough. He did nothing else. All he said was, "That's enough."
I started doing research of why you can't wear hoodies and why police stop black men. And I was just looking at mad posts about police brutality. I seen Rodney King, I seen Trayvon Martin. It comes to a point doing all this research, I kind of got scared of the world. The world seemed like a dark place. So I feel every time we always get close to get out of this racism, we always get stuck into another version of it, another version of slavery.
The history of America is deeply intertwined with the violence of racial oppression, where the first form of policing was slave patrols to chase down and apprehend or return runaway slaves to their owners, terrorize slaves enough to instill fear in them so that they will become discouraged from revolting against their owners, and to discipline slave workers who violate plantation rules. These patrols usually consisted of 3 to 6 men on horseback, equipped with guns, rope, and whips. This organized group of Caucasian men enforced the pass system, which required slaves absent from their master's property to have a pass or ticket after the abolition of slavery were black codes, designed to limit the freedom of African Americans and target them for unjust arrests. Arrested convicts were then forced to work at private corporations.
We need policemen like us, from our community. how would it be like a suburban white male coming to New York City and definitely to the Bronx? You gonna obviously think every black person is a monster because that's what you hear. You never experienced it. So that's what you hear from like TV, that's what you hear from like your family. So what you could think automatically is like, oh, black people are bad. Let's like arrest them quick. Let's like take those monsters out of the community.
In 1981, the U.S. Justice Department filed a lawsuit contending that the NYPD was discriminating against blacks, Hispanics, and women in its hiring and promotion of officers. As a result, federal judge Robert Carter assured the public that there would be more female, black, and Hispanic officers on the NYC police force.
A young man named Randolph Evans was shot by a housing police officer for no reason at all. And a group of leaders in the African-American community told us that we were making no headway in dealing with police abuse in our city, and they wanted us all to go into a law enforcement agency and fight from within. It was traumatizing at first because you don't want to go into the belly of your abuser, but I found that it was therapeutic. By going into the police department, it helped me take that demasculation that I felt when I was beaten that way, and it empowered me to fight in the police department, get promoted in that police department, and then be able to command those officers in that same police department.
In 1988, 90% of the officers who ranked above captain were white. Today, it remains 79%, while 68% of NYC's population is not white. White cops also make up 45% of the police department, but get 80% of the executive promotions.
We had a deputy commissioner, Commissioner Tucker, who was a lawyer, who was very qualified. He served under 2 police commissioners, but when it was time to promote someone to be the commissioner, they went and picked a white person instead of him. So it's clear that we could run fast, we could jump high, we could throw the ball far, but you know what? We can't coach the team.
As we diversify on this job, we have an increased level of bullying. I've had people who speak freely making slurs. We went on a job and it was in a senior building, and it was an old lady and she had a very clean house. And we walk in this woman's apartment, and you know when you walk in like your grandmother's house and it has that grandma smell? And we all know that smell, you know grandma here. And then I watched him, instead of asking where her bathroom was, he goes to her kitchen sink and he spits in it. She had a home attendant who was, either she was Haitian or she was African, and that woman became incensed about it. She was like, how dare you spit in the sink? What are you, an animal? His response to her was disrespectful. Like, he dismissed her. And I remember I was, again, 23, your head is all over the place on this job because you know, you have to conform, but there's so many things that say it's not right.
If you are in a toxic system, you have a tendency to embrace the toxic mindset of it.
When I was in 6th grade, I got in trouble constantly for getting into fights, so I was put in this program called Explorers. I got to see how cops did their work in there, and ever since then, I guess, being a cop was one of my passions. When I was in Explorers, the cops were like, I've always seen the good side of them, but when I see videos on social media of cops, you just see the other side of them. Beating on kids, locking them up for nothing. They're two-faced to me. I feel like I wouldn't treat somebody like that, especially somebody that hasn't been in that situation before. If I bring somebody into an interrogation room, I'm going to ask them questions about their past, try to get to know them, connect with them. It could have been they doing it for their family, trying to get something from their family. Not everybody's been a criminal their whole life. I'm not gonna be like the cops, the way the cops is now in this generation. I'm going to change and try my hardest, make it one of my biggest goals to make a change in the community.
I think change starts with us really taking control of how we want policing to be in our community. That's number 1, going inside, or number 2, starting your own organizations or entities that will describe what policing should look like.
One of these groups, like this activist group in my school called Million Hoodies, they were just starting and they wanted me to be a part of it. And we just started to speak about situations that happen on in our world.
I don't know about you, but I want justice! I want justice! The messages for any officer. You are human first.
Many people feel like, you know, since we're minorities, we don't have voices. What we say doesn't matter. Some people in my community are like, it don't matter if we speak up, nothing gonna change. That's not true.
I always want this field to work, but it's kind of like, I get like down to hear that. So I'm like kind of switching up my field to like art. What's most beautiful about being black is like, just art period. We always did great in art. Every time we have a struggle, we always had like something beauty about it. Jim Crow era, jazz movement was going on. Now it's like hip hop. Every time we go like police brutality, there's always a song about it.
I would want the NYPD to know that I'm a civilized, caring individual, and I try to never bring any harm to anybody around me. Definitely not in my community. I wouldn't want anything to happen to anybody in my community.
One thing I want the NYPD to know about me is that I am not who they think I am because of these stereotypes. Like, I'm a positive person. I'm trying to do the right thing.
We're all the same. I'm like you, and you're like me, and nobody's different.